Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another Recovery Room episode. We're here with Dr. Lauren again of RPR, and today we are talking about hip impingements, which I'm sure many CrossFitters experience at least once, if not more, over the course of their CrossFit career. So, Lauren, what all are we getting into today?
Yeah, so hip impingements is super common. At some point, someone's going to come in and be like, I feel pulling in my groin or like a pinching in some place, whether it's on the front, the back, or what it is. So I think the first thing to understand about talking about hip impingements for CrossFit specifically is it is a quad dominant sport. And most CrossFitters like to say, I've been told I'm quad dominant. Well, it doesn't matter what type of athlete you are. You probably are going to be quad dominant. Because my first question is, how many squats do I do when I train? I'm talking about your warm-up air squats, your warm-up, sets in your lifts, then into your WODs, even accessory stuff that you might do afterwards. It is quads, quads, quads. Now, of course, the glutes and hamstrings work, except in the volume that we're talking about, it's going to be quads. Then we're lunges, step-ups, box jumps, all of those things. So if I'm using my quads all the time, you have to remember your quads attach to the top of your pelvis, way, way, way up here. When they are tight, they are going to create an anterior pelvic tilt. Okay? Now, when that happens, that means even in standing, okay, and I see this in so many of my CrossFitters, that my hip flexors are working to hold me up in standing. So they're working already. And then where do most hip impingements come from? Through the anterior region from the pubic groin area out to the side and up. So the thought and being aware of my repetition overuse injury that can be related to hip impingement, even if my hips are perfectly healthy and fine, can be because the volume through time and time and time is so much building up into my quads that it's actually changing sort of my natural hip and pelvic alignment, that now I'm stuck in a hip impingement zone. So that'd be question one to ask yourself.
Yeah. And this is like, just thinking about it is like, if you squat 3 times a week, you're probably hitting volume of at least 100, maybe more if you're a higher level athlete on 2 to 3 of those days. So you're doing a large amount of volume in regards to squatting in each of your sessions.
Yeah. And you're going to become what you train, which is why you're doing it. But we don't want it to be so much that way. Even it sometimes translates to then people have hip impingement when they sit, when they're driving their car, and now it's starting to carry over to day-to-day life when they roll over in bed. Like, we need to get away from that, that, the position and the recruitment that you're doing is specific for when you're training, and also that it's not creating a bigger problem. Otherwise, you're just going to stay inflamed even throughout the course of the day.
Yeah, it's a good point. So what's up next?
So another small thing to think about even when you train, especially in your warm-up sets, lighter progressions and things, lighter percentages and things like that, is do you stand up your lifts? Okay. And as a PT, I totally understand like sort of short ending a little bit, like as we stand up a clean or a jerk, but that pelvis stays forward, okay? So I'm telling myself that every time I stand up a lift or even a back squat, it's here, that's my new normal. Like, that's hip extension. This is not hip extension. This is hip flexion. Hip flexion is going to create your impingement zones. So taking a half a second glute engagement at the top tells this to relax. And now we remember what hip extension truly is again.
Got it.
So small little things like that are important. Sometimes even if it's not going to work for whatever you're doing, I'll have people do it afterwards. Reload a bar at the end of a back squat, completely loaded, and just stand, pinch your glutes together for 1 minute.
Yeah.
Retell your system that when I'm axial loaded, I actually still can get away from an impingement zone, engage my glutes, and that my hips are now extended and not flexed.
Yeah. And that goes along to you saying, don't leave the gym
looking like your last rep.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yep. Awesome. So what is kind of the last little thing that you have in here?
So it's about training the posterior chain. And many blacklisted people have heard me say this before. But what I'm talking about is I'm not talking about just banded hamstring curls. I'm not talking about everyone's famous thing that they think posterior chain is an RDL. There's way more going on. My quads are loaded. I'm standing. They're still a huge part of that motion. So I want you to have no weight in your hands. So your grip strength, your lat strength, your back position doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I want you to train the posterior heavy.
Okay.
Okay. Favorite thing is a hip thrust.
Yep.
And the reason that is because your feet are in contact with the ground. You have to overcome ground reaction force, which is the same way that we're talking about clearly in your lifts as well. So I want a hip thrust, feet in contact with the ground. My upper body has nothing to do with the strength of what my lower body is doing. And the other thing is if you go heavy, you're building up so much deep abdominal stabilizing muscles to clearly get that weight up in that barbell to be fully extended in the hip zone too. Okay. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck there that will translate then into your big squats and other big pulls and everything as well.
Yeah, okay.
So just make sure, train the posterior chain in isolation.
What about like unilateral, like hip thrusts or do those work out too? Or?
Yeah, so like a landmine hip thrust.
Okay.
If you ever seen one of those, that's going to be great for your running strength, for your lunging, your step ups, all of those more sorts of things.
Okay.
And then even just body weight ones as well. It's going to motor memory, train. Like I tell people, like 3 sets of 50 single leg hip thrusts, like once a week. If that's really a problem for you, it's absolutely exhausting. I would rather do a heavy, heavy barbell hip thrust any day of the week.
Yeah, than 50 reps.
Yeah, of body weight.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
Well, I'm going to say something real quick on that. But going in with that too of how to train this, which is another reason I like I said, the barbell thing, is that so much hip impingement will also be related to not appropriately bracing through the midline. So you could even, have a midline where it's sort of stronger and your obliques pull you to one way, but they really don't fire to help keep you onto an other side as well. And so in these positions, we're gonna feel that. You're not gonna feel that with banded hamstring curls.
Okay. So it'll be overcoming those compensation patterns in like something like a barbell hip thrust or...
Yeah, because you'll feel it too.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully this gives you some good ideas on how to kind of get rid of those hip impingements or prevent them. As we've mentioned before, we have a program with Lauren. So if you guys need some work on stuff or your body's feeling pretty beat up, get on our competitors program plus the recovery program that Lauren prescribes for everybody. And you guys will get that body feeling nice and good going into your seasons here. So
do it.
We'll catch you guys next time.